Lord Vader had a very rocky transition into Sithhood, to put it lightly, especially with him only being able to really experience himself at his greatest power for maybe a few hours, before of course he was forever limited to the confines of his suit. But one thing that was a constant struggle for Vader was actually submitting to Palpatine's authority as his new master. As a Jedi, one of Anakin's major problems was his difficulty with authority, including that of his own teacher in Obi-Wan. Even as he became a Sith Lord, Anakin had planned from the beginning to eventually overthrow Sidious and become the true master himself. But of course, this plan wouldn't come to fruition the way he hoped. From the moment he became trapped in his black armored prison, he was subservient to Palpatine for the rest of his life. But that did not stop Vader from pulling a few slights every now and then. So today, my friends and acolytes, we are going to be talking about the time when Vader went too far, when he did something that was so insulting to Sidious that it almost cost Vader his life. And it happened only a few moments after he rose from the operation table. So come along with us today, my friends, as we open up yet another holocron and discover the one thing that Sidious considered to be the most disrespectful thing anyone could ever do to him. Before we get into today's holocron, we'd like to thank Onasaber for sponsoring today's video. Onasaber is one of the leading manufacturers for high-quality replica and original lightsaber designs and hilts. And right now, they're running a limited-time sale of 40% off. If you order before June 30th, you'll not only receive 40% off your order and lightsaber, but free shipping. And with our specialized code, Stupendous, you can get an additional $15 off of your favorite lightsaber. If you too want to travel the galaxy with a trusty lightsaber by your side, be sure to check out Onasaber today, and be sure to enter our code to let them know we're the ones that sent you. Thank you again to Onasaber, and let's get back into the holocron. Our story today resides in canon, and comes from the Darth Vader 2017 comic run, which takes place immediately after Revenge of the Sith. The story picks up right after Vader shatters the restraints binding him to the table. He lets out his rage over Padme's death on all of the droids in the medical facility as they implode. The Sith Lord cries out in anguish. In the shadows, Sidious just grins sickly at the monster of his own creation. But then, Vader reaches out with the Force and throws Sidious against the wall, crunching the metal inward. "You told me you could save her," the enraged bionic Sith roars, to which Sidious, struggling against the wall, reminds him, "In your rage, you chose a different path." Sidious then proceeds to tell Vader that Padme's death would not be in vain, since she gave Vader the greatest gift anyone could give any Sith Lord, the gift of pain. Vader could either choose to accept that pain and live for power, or die. Thinking about it, Vader chooses life and drops his master. But this is when the enraged Sidious unleashes his fury at his apprentice's insolence. Blue streams of lightning crackle from his fingertips as he pours his rage into the fledgling Sith. All the while, Sidious mocks Vader and demands for him to use his lightsaber that he lost to Obi-Wan. Sidious finally lets up and ignites his own crimson blade, laying it against Vader's throat. After which, he then says, "I realize that this has been a traumatic time for you. But if you touch me with the Force again, I will finish what Kenobi could not." Once his moment of blind fury is over, Sidious puts his lightsaber away and reminds Vader that they are friends, and he hopes that they never find themselves in that position ever again. But this was indeed what Sidious considered to be the most insulting thing Vader could ever do, which was actually reach out and use the Force against him. This act had the backfire effect of triggering Sidious into a blind rage that nearly cost Vader his life. Had Sidious not had as much self-control as he did, he would have executed his new apprentice. So why exactly did Sidious freak out so much about this? What caused Sidious to fall into this hurricane of fury? Why is it so unnerving when anybody touches him with the Force? If we actually go and look, the only other two people that successfully overpowered Sidious was Yoda and his own master, Darth Plagueis. Full stop. No one else, not Maul, Dooku, Savage, or even Mother Talzin came close to being strong enough to break Sidious's Force barrier, and beyond the level of actually being able to throw him around. Darth Sidious is used to being on top, the most powerful individual in any room that he walks in. To have anyone actually be able to contend with his own Force abilities is unthinkable, terrifying, In a previous holocron, we talked about how Sidious grew to fear and respect Master Yoda, especially following their duel on Coruscant. He actually began to take Yoda seriously after the initial Force push that Yoda used on the Emperor, a Force push which hurled him across the room. The last time Sidious had felt anyone use the Force on him like this was his own master, Darth Plagueis. During Sidious's youth and training, young Sidious had zero contenders to him in terms of power. The few times he actually got into any conflict, he was able to resolve it with little to no effort. The only person that could hold a candle to him was his own master, who was of course able to overpower him, and did so many times in their training. Sidious had been on the business end of Plagueis' Force lightning and Force throws all too many times. He had been slashed and burned with Plagueis' lightsaber as a means of teaching pain. Following Sidious killing Plagueis, he would literally go for 13 years without anybody touching him with the Force, until Yoda, confirming that Yoda was in fact a rival of his own innate power. It was a jarring and sobering moment for the Sith Lord, especially when Yoda was able to hold Sidious's lightning at bay with Terminus. Yoda, 900 years of training and discipline, and with this, he earned the respect, and may I even say admiration, of Darth Sidious. This respect though, and perspective, is not going to exist with Vader, who was only a 21-year-old boy who had just now felt the powers and gifts of the darkness. The problem here is that the previous two who managed to use the Force on Sidious were seasoned masters, but Anakin was not. The fact that Vader, a young and inexperienced Dark Lord, hampered in power by the limitations of his failure, was still able to overpower Sidious and ragdoll him into the wall like it was nothing, rocked Sidious to his core. It was impossible, unthinkable, inconceivable, and yet it had happened. Perhaps Sidious's fury response was out of fear rather than true anger. He realized that if Vader progressed, he may be able to bypass his mental limitations. He could still overpower the Emperor, if only briefly. This is why he made Vader's armor superconductive to Force lightning, thus deterring the Dark Lord from trying to surpass his master. Not to mention the fact that Vader would even think about raising a hand against his master was enough to send Sidious over the edge. Vader was a failure as a Jedi, and so far, a failure as a Sith. Sidious would get his wish, and Vader did not use the Force on his master, except for one other time when to save Sidious's life. But that's a story for another holocron. I think if we really take this whole thing into account, it makes it all the more interesting the method that Vader used to ultimately dispatch his master in the end. On the Death Star 2, while Sidious was tunnel visioned with hatred towards Luke while torturing him to death, Vader knew that if he tries to use the Force on Sidious, he would sense it and it would backfire. Rather than go for a Force choke or a telekinetic push, Vader did the one thing that Sidious least expected him to do. Sidious was 87, and his body was ravaged by the dark side, and although he was incredibly strong in the Force, he was tired and frail. Because of this, Vader used the last advantage he had on Sidious, his physical strength. Reaching over with his powerful bionic arm, he lifts Sidious over his head. And this is an easy thing for Vader to do after all. The only thing that makes it difficult is the outpouring of Force lightning surging through his veins, burning his circuits, and shorting out his respirator. Sidious is helpless though, as the raw brawn of the cyborg monster overpowers him, and he is tossed over unceremoniously down the exhaust shaft. But anyway, my friends and acolytes, what are your thoughts on this moment and the most insulting thing that Vader ever did to Sidious? Let us know if you would like to see more character breakdowns and looks into the lore. And as always, my friends, may the Force be with you and have a great day.